Welcome. We have arrived at this point in the series on types of stress, where we'll be talking about CPTSD, or complex PTSD, which is basically chronic trauma or multiple instances of trauma over time. I have put so much work and love into this part of our series. There'll be a lot of information we're covering. We're going to have a short video every day of this week. And a big part of why I wanted to really do this right and dive in here is because a lot of the experiences I'm about to describe mirror my own. I am a survivor of CPTSD, and my life today is ongoing proof of just how possible deep healing is. My own experiences with trauma and healing from trauma is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to become a therapist, basically to give back what I had been given. So when I started off grad school to become a therapist, I came in with a mission. I knew that I wanted to specialize in complex trauma, and I knew I wanted to get trained in certain specific modalities like EMDR. So this video series is especially meaningful because I have experienced a lot of what I'm about to describe. And now as a therapist, I work with clients every day who deal with some of these same symptoms. Complex trauma is a lot harder to define and pin down than single event trauma. We don't always have this single clear bad thing that we can point to explain why we're struggling. And generally, the impacts of complex trauma are also more widespread. It actually affects way more areas of our health and functioning than most single incident trauma does. So when I started therapy, I know I came to my therapist with what felt like this whole mess of issues. I was anxious, I was depressed, I had serious issues engaging in healthy relationships, I was dissociating a lot, I had body image issues, I had a very pessimistic outlook on the future. So it was hard to see through this whole mess, and I remember the day that my therapist finally sat me down and said, "Summer, I don't think you're fundamentally an anxious or depressed person. I don't think you have to always feel this way either. I think you're just traumatized." And when she told me this, I can't even explain what came over me. It was like full body chills. I was crying, but I didn't know why I was crying. And then at the same time, I started arguing with her about how my experiences didn't count as trauma. You know, in my head, trauma was this huge word that belonged to other people, not me. So this conflict around accepting that what we experienced was trauma is something that a lot of survivors of CPTSD struggle with. There are some instances where CPTSD is very clear-cut in the cases of more severe abuse, especially physical and sexual, but this is still something that's often harder for us to really swallow. For me, it took my therapist months of providing me psychoeducation on CPTSD and its impacts for me to really start to take this in. I had to work through a lot of guilt and shame before I could accept how closely my symptoms aligned with CPTSD symptoms. But some of these resources that my therapist shared with me on complex trauma were just life-changing. And I was finally able to understand myself and feel seen in a way that I hadn't before. I took my time processing this too, so that it was landing not just in my thoughts and in terms of ideas, but to really allow this new information into my body to actually feel it, which I'd recommend anyone listening to this to do the same. We'll be covering a lot of information in relatively short videos. Tune into yourself while you're listening. If you've started to zone out or can't feel anything happening in your body anymore, that's probably your sign to press the pause button, come back to that video at a later point in time, and maybe try talking through some of what you notice came up for you hearing this. As you listen over the next 4 days, I hope that some of the information I'm sharing can also help you feel more seen validated, and accepted. So in our next video in the series, which comes tomorrow morning, we'll start by breaking down what CPTSD is. And that's important, especially for those of us who struggle to recognize our experiences as trauma. So definitely tune back in tomorrow, and I'll look forward to spending time with you all over the next week.